Hey everybody, so just very quickly a couple of notes on the papers which are due this Friday. Again, to remind you about the deadlines are somewhat flexible this semester, so if you need more time, just let me know. But what I wanted to suggest is that the key thing about this paper is that it is both narrow and broad. You're going to be choosing your own primary text, anything that we've read together this semester, starting with Amanda Gorman and going up to what we're reading in class this week. But the structure of the paper is the thing I want to just spend a couple minutes with you. And this is drawing on the thinking that I suggested for you on the top half of the assignment sheet for the paper. Basically, the lower half of that assignment sheet page is a list of possible topics. But the important part, the part I'm going to talk about today, is the upper half, which is about the structure of the paper. Basically, this paper, like all papers, has an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And I want you to think about the introduction as a kind of a traditional funnel shape, which leads to a specific thesis. The thesis should refer in particular to the text that you're talking about, not just like the broad text, but the specific moment in the text. And it should answer a question about why it's important, or what it means. In other words, not just like this is what happens in the story, but this is why we should care about what happens in the story. As you go through the paper, and this is a very short paper, so I'm only talking about like 2, 3, 4 body paragraphs. You're going to talk specifically about details from the text. You're going to quote from the primary text in every paragraph, and every time you quote from a primary source, you're going to indicate where it comes from, for one thing. So you're going to have a parenthetical citation with page numbers or line numbers. But more important than that, after the quotation, you're going to explain why it matters, why it's significant to your argument. So if you're quoting, for example, the moment in Gorman's poem where she quotes from, at the same time, George Washington, Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical Hamilton, and the Hebrew Scriptures, like she's quoting Miranda, quoting Washington, quoting the Hebrew Scriptures, you might talk about why that matters, why we should care, why it would be important for us to have a 21st century African American poet trying to describe America through this kind of 3-stage allusion. An allusion to a contemporary popular play, to the founding of our country and the career of George Washington, and also to the Hebrew Scriptures. So that's the middle section of the paper, the textual analysis section. And then the conclusion is going to come back to the sort of breadth and openness of the paper. In other words, a conclusion should begin with the assumption that you've proved your case, and then try to move on to thinking about why we should care, why it might matter, why we might think about the significance either of an older work of literature that you might be writing about, whether it's Shakespeare or Beowulf or whatever, or even in the case of Amanda Gorman, a very contemporary poet, why she might be important to us as people taking English classes in universities in New York City in the early part of the 21st century. I'm happy to hear from you guys, to schedule WebEx conferences, to read drafts and send comments back very quickly. I'm also happy to negotiate a little bit. I'll be very sort of easy, flexible negotiator about deadlines. And I really look forward to reading these papers. Hope all's well with you.